I'm not somebody who likes to spike the football. I don't like to pat myself on the back. I don't have really an oversized ego. I've got a healthy ego. I've got a pretty, deep sense of confidence, but I don't think I'm cocky or egomaniacal. But when I'm right, I'm right. Told you for a year, the regime was going to kick Joe Biden to the curb. People said, come on, Mike, no way. Come on, what are you talking about? They can't do that. Kamala, what are they going to do? Who are they going to replace him with? Kamala? The most unpopular vice president in American history? And I didn't know who they'd replace him with. But I knew they'd replace him. I knew he couldn't possibly be on the ticket. And of course, I was right. What did I say 24 hours ago about the Bret Baier interview with Kamala Harris on Fox News Channel? What did I say 24 hours ago, almost to the second? Well, funny, we have it on tape. Here's our predictions. I'm going to be on record. I shouldn't do this. I never win. My predictions never work, but I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. I think he's going to eat her alive. I think he's going to eat her alive. It will not be edited. It is going to be on tape, but it's not going to be edited. He made it very clear. And I made some calls over to my buddies at Fox News. Yeah. And it truly is going to be 30 minutes, unedited, uninterrupted, Bret and Kamala Harris. I think he's going to eviscerate her. And I was right. He did. I understand that both sides look at this through their own ideological lens. Do you know there are Kamala supporters claiming she did well last night with Bret Baier? I can't even say that with a straight face. Some people called it a masterclass. You know the Drudge Report? What happened to Drudge? My gosh. The Drudge Report has morphed into the Bulwark or the Lincoln Project. I mean, the Drudge, cat eats fox. Not even a good headline. Nobody calls her cat. They call her Cammy or Kami or Mamala. Nobody calls her cat. But I guess they were trying to put a play on Fox News. Cat eats fox. And it linked to a Deadline or Hollywood article claiming that Kamala ate Bret Baier for lunch. Just chewed him up and spit him out. Look, the best tweet came from Jack Posobiec, who summed up the whole night perfectly when she flew into her rage about halfway through the interview. And by the way, start the phone calls. Come on. 800-655-MIKE. Because we got to enjoy this together. Give me your reaction. New Fox News Channel polling showing Trump now leading an 8-point swing in just the last 4 weeks. They had Kamala ahead by 2. Now they got Trump ahead. Trump's got the right now the clearest path to 270 electoral college votes or more. I think it's going to be 300 plus. I'm not going to be cocky. You got to vote like your life depends on it. You got to bring 10 people with you to the polls. Play like we're behind. And in many ways we are. The entire beast is reared up. They are cornered. They're a caged, wounded animal. They're in the corner. They're hurt, and they're going to lash out. They're flailing about. They can't believe this is about to slip through their fingers, and Trump's going to get 4 more years in the White House. So don't take it for granted. But go ahead and give me your reaction to the interview last night, 1-800-655-MIKE. I always forget all the talking heads and the smart kids who have author or books and all. I want Americans. I want real, honest-to-gosh American citizens who watched that 20-some minute interview last night and realized what a complete faceplant it was for Kamala Harris, because it was a disaster for her. It was a catastrophe. She's saying right now, well, at one point I thought that was a good idea. It was not a good idea, because the key to a presidential candidate is you got to win people over. Ain't nobody won over by her. Nobody. The only people who pretended she did okay are people who hate Trump and figure, well, she's not Trump. And that's all they got. They got no policy. They got no plan. They don't know what she is. They suspect, but she's lied about it so much that you don't have a clue what she really is. Here's the clip. Here's the post on social media that says it all. Kamala is screaming at Bret Baier now, totally lost emotional control, pulling back her lip to bare her teeth, waving her finger. I've never seen anything like this. That pretty much sums it up. Let me give you one example of how bad it was. Bret Baier asked her if she was going to apologize to the families of Joycelyn Nungare, Rachel Morin, and Laken Riley. These are beautiful young women who were slaughtered by illegals that she led into the country. Real simple question. Are you going to apologize to those grieving families?
Joycelyn Nungare, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There is no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Bret.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration. I will let one of the mothers talk about it. Take a listen.
Because of the Biden-Harris administration open border policies catch and release, they were enrolled in the Alternatives to Detention program. This meant that they were released into the United States. It was not even a full 3 weeks later that they would take my daughter, Joycelyn Nungare's life. I believe the Biden-Harris administration open border policies are responsible for the death of my daughter.
That's the early days. So do you owe them an apology is what I'm saying.
I will tell you that I am so sorry for her loss. I am so sorry for her loss. Sincerely. But let's talk about what is happening right now with an individual who does not want to participate in solutions. Let's talk about that as well.
But do you want to answer
in all fairness, I told you, I feel awful for what she and her family have experienced.
Headline, I can make it easy for you. Kamala refuses to apologize to the families of Joycelyn Nungare, Rachel Morin, and Laken Riley. That's the headline. She refuses to apologize for her policies that led to the deaths of their loved ones. I mean, that's a little bit like somebody who is responsible for the death of a family member, and they say, "Are you sorry to the family? Are you going to apologize to the family?" I'm sorry for their loss. I'm sorry for their loss. I mean, it was brutal to watch. It was as brutal as it gets. I mean, it was 27 minutes of that before the Kamala Harris campaign people were apparently flapping their arms like mad, wet hens trying to get Bret Baier to stop the interview because they'd seen enough. The behind-the-scenes story is as fascinating to me as what happened in front of the camera. The way they gamed the clock, she showed up late, and then they ended the interview early because she had done enough damage, and they knew it. They couldn't let it continue. Brutal. Bravo, Bret Baier. He did a masterful job. Finally, a tough interrogation of this empty pantsuit. This woman who doesn't have a clue, who would be so overwhelmed as commander-in-chief, our country would be doomed for a long time to come. We're in the Relief Factor studios. Welcome aboard. It's a day to celebrate. Big victory again for Donald Trump. He's having a splendid October. The news keeps getting better and better for him, and this is when you want to peak. This is the time, and they know it. The left knows it. Here was a devastating moment. Don't forget how Kamala lied about how great a shape Joe Biden was in. If he was in such great shape, why are you the nominee, lady?
Madam Vice President, you call Donald Trump. You call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Bret.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room. And he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump.
Oh, my gosh. Everything was Trump, 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 Trump. How about Iran? Trump, 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 Trump. What about illegal immigration? Trump, Trump, Trump. How do you want to turn the page? Trump, Trump, Trump. He literally asked her, what do you mean by turning the page when you were the vice president for nearly 4 years? Trump, Trump, we got to turn the page from Trump. How about this exchange where she, of course, falsely lies and claims that Trump is threatening his political opponents with violence?
He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Bret, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
Now, first of all, the audacity, it's her administration that secured 39 convictions against the guy in an attempt to lock him up. This is the lady who says he's a threat to democracy. Let me ask you an honest to gosh question. Do you think she thinks he's a threat to democracy and an enemy within? Do you believe that people who hate Trump the way she does believe he's the enemy within and all of his supporters are? Of course they do. As my buddy Mark Davis always puts it, every admission Every accusation of theirs is an admission. Every accusation is an admission. They are precisely what they accuse him and us of being. They're the ones who weaponize the Justice Department to try to desperately stop Trump from being where he is right now, the leading candidate for re-election in 19 days. They're at a nightmare juncture right now. They didn't have any idea this could happen. And let's face it, people have tried to kill him. The Democrats have tried to incarcerate him. They've made every effort to bankrupt him and ruin him. And to their horror and shock, he's poised to win the presidency.